Okay, welcome back to the Have Not Room. I am Ben and joined here as always by Chad and Brian. We are here to break down week 4 of Big Brother 23. And it's probably been one of the less chaotic weeks of the season so far, which is surprising because it's the one where there has been the least group consensus over who should actually go home. A little bit of a contradiction there, but yeah, I mean, before we get into that, as we always do, we should quickly go over the end of last week, the Wednesday and Thursday episodes, and our third evicted house guest, Brent. Chad, do you have anything of note from that whole storyline wrapping up?
I just love watching someone so delusional get blindsided. What was it, 11-0? And he thought it was going to be the other way. Oh, it was awesome to watch. He had no idea. Oh, man. But yeah, I mean, as Brent said, he has an impeccable social game. So good, I guess, that everyone wanted him out as early as they did.
Mm-hmm.
So at least that's probably what Brent's thinking. So good for you, Brent. And we'll never see you again.
There's a reunion show.
That's true.
Jeez,
Yeah.
My mic over here. There's the reunion show.
Yeah.
Such a professional.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he'll probably be. I don't know if they're doing another Zoom with the pre-jury or what, but we'll see. We'll see how that ends up going. But yeah, before Brent's eviction, though, we had our Wednesday night episode where we got a little bit of background info, a lot of setting up for Brent's downfall, and we got our veto comp, which was a variation on the classic Bowl Arena competition, where that comp eventually came down to Christian and Xavier, and we see Christian ending up winning that comp and the veto along with it. Brian, do you have a reaction to watching this in the moment? Because I sure did.
I mean, I like Bull Arena. I think it's a fun competition. I thought it was funny that the added couches just add a little bit of spice, especially where Per Diem uploaded a video where he talked about challenge hacks, included Bull Arena, and the challenge hack was Austin crawling to the thing. Couldn't have done that now. We had inflatable couches in the way. Wouldn't have worked. So that was interesting. And then yeah, I guess good for Christian winning a comp by literally this much. That last ball by Xavier, I think hit the block and bounced over it. But if that hadn't have come up at that exact second, I think he would have hit the pin too. So it was exciting. It was a good one.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the last round, Christian got the thing in the first iteration. He ran to the spinny thing, spun it, went boom, 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 1, 2, 3, right after the other. My reaction to this, I did not know the order of elimination coming into the episode. I had thought that it had come down to Christian and Whitney at the end, but it came down to Christian and Xavier. And Christian still felt the need to win that competition when he is immune for the week, and one of his close allies is the HOH. And literally, there is no practical difference between him and Xavier winning. So definitely an odd choice, I would say, for somebody who has already shown himself to be a really strong physical and mental competitor in these competitions. What are your thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, I didn't think he needed to win that. He probably could have thrown it or, gave Xavier round 2 just to beat him. But, yeah, an odd win, especially given, even in the latest episode, I think Hannah pointed out to Christian that he's won 3 or 4 comps and it's on week 4. So, I mean, that's pretty dangerous when you're also a member of the Kings who have all 4 people. So I think Christian's just putting a target on his back, and I think he should have read the room a little and realized, I don't need to win this, so might as well let the HOH win. And then, that's less blame on Christian for not using a veto, and you put all the blood on Xavier's hands this week. Not that there would be blood from this because it was Brent, but still, if it was me, I wouldn't have won that. I would have threw it to Xavier for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I think Christian probably is just too competitive, and like he's kind of the kind of person where he's never gonna really throw a comp, even if it makes sense to, just because he has like that competitive spirit in him, and he just like kind of wants to try 100% on everything. Which maybe it'll be his downfall, or maybe he'll just end up winning out for the next 12 weeks. Yeah. But definitely increasing the target that already was there, and we'll definitely talk about a target being placed on Christian's back as a comp threat coming into week 4, because after Brent's eviction, he talks to Julie Chen. He talks about how he respects them wanting to get him out because he's such a threat, and it's good that they got him out because he had a lot cooking in his mental.
He did.
Yeah. And we saw.
I think we all saw that.
We saw all of the thoughts that were cooking up in Brent's mental there, about how it's hard when your body perceives your mind, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. I mean, I can't relate, but it's tough.
Right.
His head is truly in the clouds, along with his plans.
Yeah.
There are a lot of like brutal playing goodbye messages for him.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we saw Hannah and Tiffany. I think were probably the two ones that we saw that were the brutal ones. Right after Brent said that he thought that Hannah was the one person that actually had his back and was just voting with the house, Hannah comes on and says, basically, I never want to see you again, and you're a piece of shit. So.
I mean, I feel like the way you said it was even nicer than how she said it.
Well, yeah, I mean, mine was a lot more to the point. She really dragged it out and really put the knife in slowly, like inch by inch. So.
Oh man.
But yeah, any parting words for our flight attendant / part-time commercial actor / whatever else Brent does on the side?
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be fine in real life. He's an attractive dude, who I think will, be fine. Like you said, he has some hustles. He has the flight attendant job, which was probably tough during COVID, but seems to be picking back up. I would advise him to just stay off Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a liked character on Twitter or Reddit or really anywhere. This is not a good run for him in terms of building a fan base.
Yep.
And that's all I really have to say for Brent. Oh, it was the Kevin saying goodbye to Matt. Like, Brent, goodbye. Okay. That's how I feel.
Yeah. A little bit of Kevin Schleeuber action there. But yeah, and then right after that, we get into our 4th HOH comp of the summer, and it's going to be a team comp. Luckily, all 4 teams have 3 players left, so that worked out.
Very convenient, yeah.
Yep.
Worked out really well.
Yep. And it's basically just a puzzle, right? There's a running component, but it's like 90% puzzle. And
like 3-step for running.
Yeah. It's like 3 steps to get there and then 3 steps back. And it's like essentially a relay where the mechanics of the challenge or the competition force you to constantly switch off. And in case it wasn't clear to the audience, because it wasn't clear to the Kings team apparently, the winner of the competition will be the player on the team that completes the puzzle, who does the puzzle and then hits the button at the end. It is not a situation, to clarify again for the Kings team, where you can win the puzzle as a team and then the team chooses the HOH, because that is how they thought it worked. And because the Kings team was trying the King's team was planning on giving either Alyssa or Sarah Beth this competition, and Christian essentially, as we'll see, ends up accidentally winning.
I was wondering, do you think, like, as the buttons went locked in the HOH, do you think Christian could have finished it and then someone could have, like, walked on and, like, immediately hit the button? Or do you think because he was the last person putting the last piece on, he was locked in from that moment? Not that it matters, but what do you guys think?
I think that the way you would have to do that is to leave the last piece off intentionally, go on, hit the buzzer, and then let somebody else come on, put the last piece on, and then do it. Because I think that in order to relay the next person, you have to hit the button, and then also in order to end the challenge, you have to hit the button. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that we saw how it ended on.
Yeah,
show.
no, we didn't.
I was like, oh, they'll show a good angle of it in this episode, and then they just didn't.
No, they sort of did. They sort of did.
It was like a second.
Yeah.
I was expecting one of those where they like does like the flashback from the end of the competition type,
Well, yeah.
The confessional.
Well, there was the Xavier diary room, which I thought was funny, where presumably the Big Brother producers had Xavier shade them for how poorly they showed the HOH comp, where Xavier says, in case you didn't see it, Xavier won the HOH comp, and then they cut to the clip of him winning. So it's like, wow, that's very rare. You don't usually get the Big Brother producers having a player say a line in the diary room that like is shading them, basically.
In case our fucking idiot intern didn't show you what happened on Thursday night, this is what happened.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, weird. That's weird dialogue from Xavier.
Yeah. Yeah, Xavier was really looking out for us, I guess.
He was watching the comp.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, if someone messed up like that, you do not work here anymore. That's for sure.
Oh man. But yeah, from what we were able to actually see from the HOH competition, do you see anything on that HOH competition that was a takeaway for you, Chad? Any team or player that stood out to you in good or bad ways?
I mean, from what we saw, it was so back and forth. You couldn't really pick out one player. I noticed Derek X didn't do as well as I thought he would do on that one, but
Was he throwing?
A lot of people
Yeah,
speculate
that
that he
like-
might have been.
Because it was like to the point where it's like there was no
Come
way he was
on,
thinking
dude.
those pieces were going where he was trying to put
Yeah.
them, right?
Mhm.
It was bad. I mean, it was a tight race, right? I think the Queens are right behind him, or at least one of the team was right behind the Kings. So maybe like one more relay, and the other
It
team could
wasn't
have
the
won.
Jokers.
It wasn't the Jokers. It's never
Say
the
that.
Jokers.
Yeah.
Never gonna be the Jokers. But no, I mean, I like that comp a lot. It made a simple puzzle kind of complicated enough to make it a challenge. I mean, normally that would be a pretty easy challenge. It reminds me of like a Survivor-ish challenge almost. But no,
Yeah, like
I mean,
the
good.
very end of it.
Mhm.
After
Yeah.
you've like run 10
Yeah,
miles and
10 miles.
scaled walls. Yeah.
Swim through the
But
ocean.
no, yeah, good win for the Kings. I probably shouldn't have let Christian win it, but I mean, I guess does it really matter at the end of the day? But no, I mean, again, it just paints a bigger target on Christian.
Yeah, I think it paints a bigger target on Christian, and the main reason I think was they don't know that Team Twist is ending after this week, so they wanted Christian to be able to compete next week in the HOH, right? So if Alyssa or Sarah Beth win that competition, Christian is still safe. They're all basically on the same page regardless, and then Christian is still eligible to win a competition on his own the following week. But yeah, I mean the Jokers were so incompetent at that puzzle that they put it together so obviously wrong for the first like 70% of the competition, and then realized and then had to take the entire thing apart. Big D on the feeds right after they came back up was loudly complaining to, I believe, Alyssa in the kitchen about how terrible his teammates are and how they're like idiots and how they're, like the worst.
All right, Big D. You're my winner pick. You weren't doing much better on the puzzle. Let's cut the girls some slack.
Are you telling me that Big D is lacking in some amount of self-awareness?
Maybe. I'm speculating he might be.
Yeah.
His name is Big D. Come on.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. But yeah. The Jokers trying at 100% were doing markedly worse than a Queens team who all three of them were actively trying to throw the competition. So that's really, really not great.
So he really needed Frenchie.
Yeah.
He was holding that team down for comps.
Yeah, the Queens team, I believe, almost won because it was taking so long, and they were like not throwing effectively enough to the point where they manufactured a reason to take the entire puzzle apart and start over.
Good Lord.
He's like, guys, it's like a 9-piece puzzle.
Yeah.
What the hell's happening here?
It's a surfboard, Christian.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at. Christian wins the HOH, and as we see in the Sunday night episode, it becomes pretty apparent that the nominees are going to end up being Hannah and Whitney, and it's just a matter of how we have conversations to get there and who ends up being the target at the end of the week. But first, we have to get through this slight drama of, Whitney's going to be on the block and potentially a target. However, she is guaranteed to play in the wildcard competition alongside Claire, and then Azza is also chosen as the third. And we see a nightclub-themed balance rolling ball style competition. Brian, what were your thoughts on this competition?
I always like this competition. I think it's a solid one. They've used it a bunch of times for like the HOH, where it's like if you fall, it goes into a numbered one.
Yep.
It is hard. I actually bought like one of the small puzzle ones from one of those, like I think maybe Plexer puzzles or one of the ones that you'll see like on Twitter or Instagram. It's tough. I thought it would be like an easy thing. It is not. So I don't think it's too big of a deal that it took all three of them forever. That being said, Azza seemed like she wasn't moving. I don't know what was happening with that, but she was like, looks like she was trying to make the ball move with her mind rather than roll it. It didn't work out very well. So, good on Claire for winning a huge wild card.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll talk about that, but definitely Azza decided that this was the perfect time for her to practice her Jedi skills.
Her midichlorian count is quite low.
Yeah, she could maybe move the ball with her mind approximately an inch over the course of what seemed like 10 minutes. So, not too strong.
You really did like go after her for it. Like they just kept cutting back.
Oh.
It's just like still exact same shot, same exact place. Like Jesus.
Yeah. Chad, do you have any thoughts on this competition before we get into Claire's decision here?
No, I always love this comp. It's a classic one. Just, balance the ball and roll it down. I always think, like, why don't people just, like, send it? Just go for it, just in one go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously, no one ever does. They try it, like, a couple times. Doesn't work. But, yeah, no, Azza just blew that one out of the water. Oh, my God. Like, that was terrible. But, no, good for Claire. I mean, our girl Claire getting a comp win. All right. And the result is very, very rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. We see Claire winning our fourth wildcard competition. The safety had been previously denied by the winners of wildcard competitions 2 and 3 because of the addendums onto them. But now we see Claire basically being forced to be immune this week. The producers are like, all right, fuck this. Somebody's being immune this week 100%. It's just a matter of what else we're going to be doing here. And so she gets the choice of either her whole team being immune this week, so that would be her, Kyland, and Tiffany, or her being immune until jury, which is presumably just also next week, based off of
just 2 weeks.
based off of how Big Brother usually would do a jury, which would be starting after week 5. So essentially, her, Kylan, and Tiffany can be immune this week, or she can be immune this week and next week. And she seems like she takes a little bit to think about this before deciding that she would take immunity for herself for 2 weeks. Brian, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, I also would have taken immunity. So you go onto the show, like, the first goal is, like, get on the show. The next goal is get on the jury, at least. And then the, like, last goal is get to the end and then win. So if I could have the option to guarantee jury, I'm doing it. Like, I don't think anyone could blame you for that, personally. I know I wouldn't. If someone on my team won it and was like, sorry, I'm going to choose jury, I'd be like, yeah, you absolutely are going to choose jury. Come on. Like, there's no choice in my mind. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I completely agree. Like, also, like, if you're like a decently, like, if you watch any season, you know jury's coming. Like, in 3 weeks max, but likely 2. So knowing you're also safe this week as one of the queens, it's just like, who cares? It's 1 week. I mean, I think any player in the house would respect that and also take that same deal, especially with this house where it's overall like a pretty friendly house, in my opinion. We haven't seen any like fights. No one's really like salty, at least not that I've seen on the episodes. I don't know about feeds too much, but and with your teammates being Kai and Tiffany, like, they're fine for God knows how long, so they're not going to be upset. So yeah, I mean, you're Claire, you take that like 10 times out of 10.
Oh yeah,
I think anyone in that house would have taken that.
I agree. I think you take it in general, and especially in this instance. Claire knows that Kai and Tiffany are safe this week, and Christian is not going to target them as part of the Royal Flush agreement and alliance. So, like, I don't think that she could expect them to be upset with her for this decision. And, you never know what can happen next week, right? You never know where you truly are, or if somebody on the outs who, may target you, somebody like a Big D or maybe an Azza, but probably Big D would be the real only one who would target Claire next week, wins. Or even potentially, some of her own potential alliance members who are doing some crazy, stupid stuff, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely take it. Yeah, Tiffany even had the DR. She's like, yeah, of course you take it. Like, yeah, like, you can't blame her for that. Like, I would have taken it. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I think too that it would have been very funny if Whitney had won this particular one, especially where like she's just so easily the house target. Like, to be safe until jury would have been hilarious.
Yeah, both options would have been very bad because if she picked safety for this week, then both her and Hannah would be safe this week, and Christian would have to find 2 completely new people to put up, which, as we saw, he said probably would be Azza and Brittany. And if she picks safety until jury, that's 2 more weeks where the presumable house target is not going to be able to be eliminated, which would mess up a lot of people's plans. Yeah. So. All right, let's get into quickly discussing the Azza or the Hannah versus Whitney conversations that we saw in the episode, and then we can go over some of the plans that we're seeing for this eviction in the next week. Chad, from the episode, we saw primarily Alyssa and Sarah Beth being the ones to push that Hannah should be the target, whereas members of the Cookout plus Claire within the Royal Flush were pushing primarily for Whitney to be the target this week, with Christian kind of vacillating back and forth. We saw a conversation where the Jokers basically came up and said, yeah, we want to target Whitney, and the rest of the Kings were like, oh, well, if they want to target Whitney, then we'll just take out Hannah. That's next week. And then when the Jokers win HOH next week, they'll go after Whitney instead of us, which is perfectly reasonable and smart. What are your thoughts, Chad, as far as how this was all handled by Christian and the rest of the Kings team in the Cookout?
I think all of Xavier's diary rooms summed up exactly how I was feeling during that whole thing. Just like, if I'm the Kings, I also want to target who is it, Hannah over Whitney, because we know the queens are going after Whitney. So like, why not? I mean, or the Jokers. But yeah, it's tough because we're a very pro cookout podcast, obviously, because all three of our winner picks are in it. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way my winner pick is getting anywhere near the
exactly.
end.
So it's
I
like,
think it's going to be on the merit of his game.
no way. I mean, who knows? But yeah, like I said, Xavier sums it up perfectly. Where it's just like, it's going to be so hard for them to not show their cards this week if the cookout does save Hannah. Because let's say they all just vote out Hannah, right? And Hannah's like, oh, 10-0. And I feel like she's got the mouth on her where she would just expose the cookout on the way out. She kind of has that little fire in her. I mean, I'd be scared of it if I was in the cookout. But to the conversations they had, it was kind of cool seeing Sarah Beth like really lead the charge on it. Because coming in, she always was played up as like this kind of like subsided person, kind of in the background, trying to fit in. But she's like very in the forefront of this, and I feel like one of the louder players in the house almost in terms of, you know, the strategy behind everything. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And, you know, we'll talk about the rest of the week, but definitely putting a lot of strain, especially on Xavier here as somebody who's involved in both conversations, the conversations with the Kings and the conversation with the Cookout, where he's like the sole Cookout member who is having to put all of this work in to sway the rest of the Kings off of wanting Hannah out this week. Yeah, Brian, what are your thoughts on that, the whole situation of Xavier's in here?
Really unfortunate situation for him to be in. I mean, how do you navigate? Like, I've been thinking about, like, how do you navigate this if they're set on Hannah without showing your hand? And I don't know if there's a way to, like, save his relationship with his team and his alliance. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's going to have to be, at the end of the day, he's just going to have to make a decision and be like, I'm all in with, you know, one or the other here. And I think probably will be the Cookout. But, yeah, just an unfortunate turn of events for him to have to, you know, navigate this.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of all of this, we're going to see Whitney kind of like half give up, especially as we'll talk about after the veto competition, and talk about wanting to go home to see her kids, talking about, you know, not wanting to campaign against Hannah because she likes Hannah so much. So there is a lot of things that happen towards the end of this week, or at least, you know, in the last couple of days, that seem to be pushing the rest of the Kings in the direction of accepting the fact that Whitney is going to end up being evicted here. But this is definitely creating a lot of tension within this Royal Flush Alliance, as far as, like, everybody in this alliance kind of has their own, their kind of MO that their kind of, like, own agenda that they want to push. But yeah, let's briefly touch on the veto comp. I'm not sure what the comp was. I don't think they really talked about it that much. But apparently it was not particularly close. And the winner of the veto comp is, again, Christian.
That's what he needs. He needs to add those stats before he goes out.
Man.
He needs his third comp win. Third comp win out of 3 that he's played in a row. Obviously, the wild card was in the middle there, but he did not compete in that. So yeah, veto, HOH veto, back to back to back. And obviously he didn't use the veto, and the nom stayed the same. But this is not good. Not good for Christian.
It's very unnecessary. It feels like. Although, I mean, at this point too, can you put, you know, the sprites back into Pandora's box? I think, you know, people are already like, yeah, he's a huge threat. So is him winning more really killing him, or what?
In this case, at the very least, I do believe the second place person in the comp was Derek X, who was, I think, chosen as Whitney for her house guest choice. And I think that would have been a really bad outcome for Christian, because I think there are outside chances that Derek X, ironically, would use the veto on Hannah.
Man.
Gets picked as house guest choice.
Yeah, that's the classic.
Like, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I understand, at least in this case, the wanting to win to, guarantee his noms stay the way they are, and he doesn't have to put up a joker after he spent this week kind of building relationships with them. But yeah, not really good at all, and a lot of people are going to start talking about, we need to get this guy out.
With the showmans too.
With the showmans
out
too.
in the open. He is number one in this house right now.
Yeah.
He's got to be.
I mean, for some people, but you would think for everybody, but it's not necessarily the case.
You give him a couple weeks, and it's just like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. If we're talking,
he gets the jury,
too late.
Be a problem.
Yeah. If we're talking about the
Especially if Alyssa's
cookout,
there.
talking about the cookout's potential ability to run the rest of the game, like front to back, like they have the numbers after next week, week 5. So if week 5 goes well, the only thing that's going to stop the cookout from running the season back, front to back is somebody who is able to win comps very easily, right, and screw up their plans. And that would be Christian. And so you would think that would mean that all of the cookout would prioritize getting Christian out ASAP. But as we'll talk about, that's not the case.
Oh, man.
So yeah, I think that Whitney is going home this week. I think it's going to be unanimous. It seems like the Kings have come around to the fact that that's what's going to happen, and have kind of accepted that and stopped fighting. So let's move on to some of the alliances that have started to form headed into next week and for the future, with the big ones being built around, surprise, Christian and Alyssa. Who have used this ability this power to form some potential sub-alliances. Their first one with Tiffany and Claire. Their second one with Hannah and Derek X, which is not going to turn out super great after some conversations from today. And Christian is going to start to cultivate a fake Final 2 alliance with none other than Brittany. What are your immediate thoughts on that, Brian?
Why Brittany? I mean, the other moves are good. Claire and Tiffany always find a way to be at the center of every power structure, it seems, so good on them. Derek X and Hannah, that's a little surprising, just seeing as his target was Hannah for the first part of the week. But hey, things can change in the Big Brother house. Is always a fluid situation. I don't really understand the Brittany Final 2. I mean, I get it in the sense that if he can get Brittany to the Final 2 with him, he will probably win. So that's nice. I just don't necessarily see her as a necessarily super valuable ally. She hasn't really shown me anything in terms of game prowess or compability. So that's where I'm standing on those.
Yeah, I think the Brittany thing is primarily just to cover his bases for next week. He knows that the Jokers view him and Alyssa and the Kings in general as a threat, so he's trying to at least have some sort of somewhat protection.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think all he's doing is securing Brittany as a jury vote almost. If she makes it the jury, which is probably likely, maybe, but I don't know. That's not going anywhere. I mean, we all could be surprised by Brittany, but I don't know. I'm not taking it over on that.
It's gonna go beast mode on us at the end of the season.
You never know.
Yeah.
Pump out.
I've seen crazier things happen on Big Brother for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the thing to look out for here is this foursome that Christian and Alyssa have tried to start with Derek and Hannah. because Hannah, via Tiffany, is very aware that she was not necessarily always going to be a pawn this week. And from Tiffany's information, Hannah knows that the primary person that was pushing for her to go this week was Sarah Beth, which is the case. And so, in order to try to solidify some trust here with this new foursome, Hannah today had a conversation with Alyssa, asking her straight up, was I ever the target, and did Sarah Beth ever push for me to be the target this week? And Alyssa flatly denies this over and over again, no matter how many times Hannah rephrases it, or no matter how many variations of the question she asks.
Yeah.
Which you can tell based off of just kind of the way that Hannah is holding herself and her body language makes Hannah very, very uneasy with having any sort of alliance with Alyssa moving forward.
Fair. I mean, information and someone lies right to your face. So
Yeah.
it's not really a good thing to build trust on.
Correct. And so at this point, this alliance is not a thing, and Hannah has had conversations later in the day indicating that the people that she would put up if she were to win HOH next week would likely be Alyssa and Sarah Beth. Surprise, surprise.
Fair enough.
Not Christian. Interesting.
Yeah, very odd choice there, given Christian's competition ability. If he were to be chosen for the veto and win it, he would likely take Alyssa off and force Hannah's hand a little bit, which would probably force somebody like a Brittany on the block, where Brittany would probably end up getting taken out. Maybe Sarah Beth ends up getting taken out as well. As we'll talk about, Sarah Beth is kind of being thrown around as a potential target by people like Tiffany and even to Xavier for as soon as next week. Any thoughts on all that, Chad? That's a lot of information, I know, and a lot of kind of craziness.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Sarah Beth is putting herself in a position where she's going to be targeted just based off of, how smart she is and her comp abilities, at least in mental comps. I mean, we know, fortunately, that next week is an endurance comp, so I don't think Sarah Beth's going to win that. Again, she could surprise us. But, yeah, I get the logic in not putting up Christian, but it's tough, too, because I feel like Christian wins veto. Does he take himself off? Probably. And then Alyssa goes home there. But, I mean, if you're trying to backdoor Christian just to not give him a chance to play in the veto, that's a strategy, I guess. But you're more playing the chance game with that. 'Cause, again, he could be very easily pulled in veto. But, I don't know. I see the logic because worst case scenario, Christian wins. But that's also kind of likely if he gets picked for veto. And, he takes Alyssa down, then Sarah Beth probably goes home, maybe. But I don't know. I think that's kind of a bad play, but I also get the strategy behind it. But I think you're better off just putting the two of them up. So you can get this alliance dead to me. Good luck.
Yeah, no, understandable. I think that even still, Christian and Alyssa are not necessarily being targeted as much as they deserve to be going into next week. The primary people going after them right now are Hannah, as we just mentioned, Azza, and that's pretty much it, actually.
Really? Wow.
Big D is planning on putting up Sarah Beth and Hannah, with Sarah Beth as the target. And Brittany, I believe, is planning on doing something similar. And as I just mentioned, Tiffany is now going on an anti-Sarah Beth campaign because, one, she is jealous of Kylan's relationship with her. She wants Kylan more to herself. Two, she's created this roadmap in her head for how the cookout's going to be gained control that relies on Sarah Beth going out because she sees Sarah Beth as smart enough to figure it out. And she's kind of created this weird, like, queen trading situation where her and Kyland each take Sarah Beth and Claire off the board so that they're most loyal to each other. Three, she definitely noticed how hard Sarah Beth was pushing this last week to go after Hannah, which scares her because, as Tiffany says to the cameras this week, the person she plans on taking to the final two in reality is Hannah. And four, she has spent a lot of time cultivating a relationship with Christian and Alyssa, Christian in particular. And so with this new four-person alliance of her, Claire, Christian, and Alyssa, she does not want to have to be the person to take a shot at the showmance. So with all of that, Tiffany is pushing very hard for Sarah Beth to be the target next week. Claire seems to be on board with Sarah Beth being the target next week, and Claire will have a conversation with Hannah about this. Tiffany, as I said, is pushing this to Xavier. Pretty much the only person that Tiffany is not pitching this to is, for obvious reasons, Kyland. And also, like, you know, the rest of the Kings. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Brian? On Sarah Beth being the most likely target headed into next week?
I'm quite surprised because I would have thought there'd be any necessarily big reason to target her. Obviously, this week she proved that she's a very aggressive player. When she has like influence with the HOH in trying to get the target onto Hannah, which makes sense. She should have honestly just like played under the radar this week again.
Mm-hmm.
I think she would have been fine for the most part. One question I do have, does Claire have anything going on outside of Tiffany and Kyland?
Well, Claire actually very much does not have any interest in working with Kyland long term. She sees Kyland as the best player in the house, the person most likely to get in her way of making it far, and somebody that she is definitely trying to set up very subtly to be a target as early as like first week of jury. But she is very loyal to Tiffany. But I mean, as you mentioned, Claire and Tiffany are in a lot of alliances in the house. She has a pretty solid relationship with Derek X. She's been trying to form a stronger relationship with Hannah. She's talked a decent amount with Christian and Alyssa, but less so than Tiffany. And I think she's relatively well set up, except for the fact that Tiffany has no loyalty to her for some godforsaken reason. She should be well set up, I'll say. But Tiffany is more worried about Claire finding out about the cookout and being smart and capable enough to do something about it than she sees Claire as somebody who can be like a loyal number to her. And so Tiffany is talking about getting Claire out as early as 2 weeks from now when her safety expires, or even the week after, in some order.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of like, when you're going through all of it, it feels like Claire is well positioned if Tiffany allows it.
Right.
And Tiffany doesn't seem to want to allow it,
Correct.
So she's not well positioned, which is a bummer, obviously, for us as a podcast who are rooting for Claire. So, unfortunate.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on kind of Tiffany's thoughts here, Chad, and her like kind of long-term game plan? And as far as like her ideal boot order at this point is Whitney this week, of course, Sarah Beth the week after, and then in some order, Claire or Christian, depending on who wins HOH, and then I believe she would want to do Brittany and Alyssa in some order, and then Derek X last or second to last, and then she plans on taking Azza or Big D out first from the cookout, getting Kyland out also sort of early within the cookout pecking order, and her ideal final three is her, Hannah, and Xavier, where she is hopeful that Hannah and her would take each other, and then she would beat Hannah. That's her long-term game plan right now.
I mean, if you're Tiffany, that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you want the cookout to be all in Jerry, and that's gonna get them all in Jerry, and they're probably all gonna vote for Tiffany if she sells herself right. Comps though to prove it, because my guess is that if that's the final three, I would put money on Xavier winning that. And I mean, if you're Xavier, how do you take Tiffany? I would take Hannah all day because she's, as of now, done nothing. And Tiffany can sell herself as a mastermind, which I'm sure Xavier will hopefully sniff that out. But no, I mean, that's like a really great plan. It's going to be tough to execute. But I mean, if she pulls it off, she's going to be pretty high up there in the Big Brother player rankings for me, because honestly, it's a great idea. It's kind of a dream scenario for her, and it's arguably realistic, and it could very well happen. I think she's going to have to get lucky a couple weeks on the way. Certain people are going to have to win certain comps. I don't like the idea that Kylan's going early there.
Right.
Obviously, if you're Tiffany, though, you don't want Kylan in final two, because I think he would probably pull the win over her for the same reasons. Like, hey, I was also the number two in this strategic partnership here, but I also won the comps early, and I'm sure Kylan will win another one at some point if the cookout's going to make it that far. But no, I think Tiffany is probably one of the better strategists in the house, if not the best. But I mean, I hope someone catches on to it in the cookout and boots her first, just for all of our sakes, at least for the winner picks.
Right. I agree. I love Tiffany. I think she's a great player. The one thing about this strategy is, like, it's so good on paper to have your hands and all the different pots and, be trying to juggle everything and cover your bases, but it can all be undone if people start comparing notes with one another. And we've seen that happen to players in the past. We've seen it happen to Derek from BB16. It never happened to him. It was something that it was like, wow, he's really involved with everybody. Eventually, this is going to come back to bite him, right? And then it didn't. Different kind of temperament, but BB18, Pauly, similar time in the game. We were looking at him like, oh, God, he's going to run away with this. He's involved with everybody. He's good with everybody. And it eventually fell apart for him. So we'll see. I don't want to say Tiffany's got this locked in, because this is a hard strategy to pull off from this far out. It's a hard strategy.
Yeah. I mean, the reason that I'm focusing mostly on Tiffany here when I'm talking about long-term strategy is, one, I think she's in the best position in the house. And so it's like the easiest to talk about her strategy, and I think the most relevant. And two, she does a lot of talking to the cameras, and so we're the most aware of what her long-term strategy is. And so
we appreciate.
Yes, definitely appreciate. But I see a number of issues with this plan. The primary issue I see is the cookout is essentially operating as like a brigade-style alliance where everybody kind of has a sort of parachute situation going on. And the thing that's good about having a parachute is that the longer they're in the game, the safer you are, because that's the person that's always going to go up on the block next to you and take a bullet for you. They're basically like a bulletproof vest, right? You don't want the bulletproof vest to be broken early on, because then you have nothing, right? It's like an insurance policy. You don't want to use it early. And then the second is, presumably, if they end up being the one outside of the alliance to win, they are going to take a shot at other people in the alliance except for you. So the idea that Tiffany, either because of guilt or because of worry of Claire's acumen within the game, wants Claire out so soon, I think is terrible. I think it's a very awful strategic decision, to the point where even Hannah was saying to her that she disagreed with that logic, and Tiffany was saying no, Claire's too smart. Actually, I know it might have been Azza who was saying it to her, which is also surprising. It was a conversation that happened today. I think it was Azza who said it to her. Like, it really makes no sense to go after Claire so early, particularly before somebody like Christian, because leaving Christian in the game to the final 8, final 9. This is a point where it's been shown that physically dominant players at this point in Big Brother history can win out. And it is not outside of the realm of possibility that if the cookout leaves Christian in the game up until the final 9, final 8, and waits to take him out, he could just win out and win the game. It's just that simple. Like, he could win out at the very least and take a spot in the final 2. Even if they're like, oh, we have 5 cookout members in the jury. If he's sitting next to somebody in the cookout, we can still vote for them. Whatever. That's way bigger potential thorn in the side of the cookout than somebody like Claire figuring it out and then having like no social capital to do anything about it at that point.
Right.
That's my second issue. My third issue is with taking the cookout down to the final 6 in general is horrible for somebody like Tiffany. Tiffany is somebody that is not going to win endgame comps and is going to be at that point probably one of, if not the biggest jury threats. So if the cookout is going to boot somebody 6th, it's likely to be her. The cookout at this point is only beneficial to Kyland and Xavier. Probably Xavier is the one who is going to end up winning if the cookout succeeds in their plans. So I understand that Tiffany loves the idea of the cookout. She wants to make history. She wants like Twitter to support her and love her. But like, it's really not ideal for her to make this sort of a long-term plan, especially to put somebody like Xavier in the final 3, somebody who's so charismatic, somebody who is shown to be competent at competitions. It's just a really, really terrible strategy when she could instead have somebody like Claire there, who she would easily beat in the final 2, would take her to the final 2, and who has shown to be on par in competitions approximately with Tiffany. So it's all around terrible. I loved the conversation before she had with Kyland where they talked about how we're going to take the cookout to jury, and then from there it's, everyone for themselves basically.
Whatever.
Yeah, because then at that point, as long as one of the cookout members is in the final 2, they have the jury votes and that cookout member will win. I think that's a reasonable strategy. I think that would have been good. Getting out somebody like Sarah Beth even next week, I think, is a decent idea if they're not going to go for Christian or Alyssa. So, but yeah, there's so many things, in my opinion, that are wrong with this plan that I hope that Tiffany will see, because otherwise I think her devotion to the goal of the cookout is going to cost her the win this season.
I mean, part of the reason that, like, her style of game can be successful is, like, she's part of the big alliance while making alliances with the outsiders.
Yep.
Presumably to make a flip at some point where she's at the top of the new alliance.
Yeah.
If she's not going to do it, what's the point of having all these side, deals? Like, that's what I was thinking when I was saying, like, if she can pull it off. But if she's not even intending on pulling it off, what's the point?
Yeah. No, I mean, all of these deals she's making is mostly as a way to try to guarantee her safety, right, in the short term. And her allegiance is still to the cookout and to take them down as far as she can towards the final 6, which is still unlikely to happen just because that's, the way competitions bounce. Yeah. But it is possible for an alliance to go all the way down to the end together, as we saw last season. But it's unlikely as long as there are people outside the alliance that can, consistently win comps.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't like this. I think that, honestly, the best thing that can happen to Tiffany is for the cookout to fall apart within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And therefore, she's then forced to play a more selfish game and, a more kind of open game with the pieces that are left on the board after that happens. Because right now, Aza has shown time and time again that she is unwilling to work towards the ends of the cookout, and she has to be pushed over and over again by Tiffany to consider Hannah to be a full member. Derek F. Big D is planning, to my knowledge, to put Hannah up on the block if he stumbles into HOH next week, which he's not going to do with it being an endurance comp. But still, the idea being in his head is bad. This is just not going to work, and even if it does work, it's not going to work in Tiffany's favor. So I just don't know. I don't know where we go from here. Otherwise, obviously from a selfish perspective for myself as somebody who picked Xavier to win the game, I'm not like super upset that like everybody seems to be playing down towards an end game where Xavier is just going to run away with the game. But it's very disappointing to see it happen.
Yeah. No, I agree. We want excitement. We don't want one alliance running into the end without the excitement. But like you said, I mean, you'll get the W alongside Xavier. So
or Chadwell with Kylan. I think those are the real only
Right.
two outcomes for how this will play out. But yeah, you guys have any more thoughts?
no, I think we covered pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
Did you guys?
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's, now with all those points you made about Tiffany's position there, I think it's probably a bad move for her, especially if there's two cookout members sitting in final two, like more of a toss-up, and it's going to be more of who won comps and who was the bigger person that took the cookout there. And my guess is it's not going to be from Tiffany. It's going to be from someone who's winning the comps for the cookout.
Yeah. That's even if Tiffany makes it to the final two.
Get it?
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think Tiffany wins in many final two scenarios unless it's against like a Brittany or maybe Hannah, but I don't know.
I think she could win against
that's a tough
Aza or
win.
Big D as well, but again, unlikely.
Yeah.
Unlikely she gets it.
Yeah.
I think she again wins against Claire, but she doesn't want to get there with Claire. Definitely disappointing, because the thing I liked about the season so far was that people seem to be playing very self-interestedly and in a way that was very selfishly, which is I think what makes a good Big Brother. But we'll see. It's still early. A lot of things can change. A lot of competition outcomes can really throw a wrench into some of this discussion and plans. But yeah, as a reminder, Team Twist is ending after this week. Thursday night, we're going to get our live endurance HOH. So the people we would have to be looking at to win that, assuming it's some sort of wall or like hanging situation on a rope, will probably be some of the smaller girls who seem to have some strength. So an Alyssa or a Sarah Beth maybe, which would be very interesting given that they are primary targets next week. So if one of them were to win the HOH, that could really derail a lot of situations. Anything else? I don't think so, right?
I'm good.
All right, well, with that being said, Chad, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Chadley. On Instagram at ChadleyJP and on Twitter at ChadPerry25, which should be like that.
And Brian?
And you can find me on Twitter at the fake BMAR. That's BMARR. My Instagram's super Marbro. I post when I'm like making short sketches a lot, but I haven't had the time yet. So if you want to follow me there, you can, and hopefully in the future, when my schedule gets a little less chaotic, I can post more on there.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Ben Sharon. You can follow the main channel on Twitter at WG Everything. You can also follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitch, the main YouTube channel, at Wicked Get Everything, Instagram as well, at Wicked Get Everything. This channel, our podcast channel, is Better Radio on YouTube, and we are the Have Not Room on every major podcasting client. So you can check us out there. And until next week, signing off.
But yeah, I'll try to get the Twitch set up for next week so we can simulcast.
That would be awesome.
Like